Welcome to Fix It Home Improvement, covering projects that every homeowner should know and great products for home and garden.
Hi, I'm JC, and this is where we share weekly home improvement tips. I'm here with my sidekick, I couldn't think what to call you, co-host Cindy.
Hello.
Today we're going to be talking about thermostats, some nice settings, and we also had an interview with Tim from White Rodgers. So in 1620 in England, they created the first mercury thermostat for chicken incubators. They were able to really control the heat, so it was really great for that industry. And then it wasn't until like the 1830s till they created that bimetal thermostat. So it's that coil of, I don't know whether you ever took apart an old thermostat, but it had a little circular coil of wire. So it's two different pieces of metal sandwiched together, and as it gets hotter or colder, they constrict and expand, and that's what changes the shape of that coil. And then they would have a little tube filled with mercury, and the mercury, it was a mercury switch. So it was just really innovative. And then at the same time, they also came up with a thermostat rather than a mercury switch. It had a moving contact with a tiny magnet on it, and when that coil of metal moved close enough to the other side of the contact, it would pull itself together and turn on, let's say, your furnace. And then when it got hot enough, that coil would expand and pull itself off. So just very, very interesting. And then in 1906, Honeywell came up with the first programmable thermostat.
Oh, you're kidding.
And if you look at this, it's really cool. It looks like a mini cuckoo clock. It's like huge. And what you would do is you would turn it down at night. So you would set the time on this thermostat, this big clock that's connected to the thermostat of what time that you wanted the temperature to go up. So you would turn it down manually at night when you went to bed, and then in the morning, whatever time you had the alarm set for, then it would automatically turn it up. So that was kind of the first programmable thermostat that was kind of innovative, and they were really advertising like, hey, a half an hour before you get up, your home will start to warm up, so that was kind of cool. And then in 1941, Honeywell came out with their kind of renowned round thermostat. The problem with thermostats, when people were trying to replace them and put them in themselves, most of them were rectangular. So, if you didn't have a little spirit level, you never really got it quite level. So Honeywell said, you know what, let's make it round. It'll always look perfect. And they actually came up with the first pop-off cover that was paintable. So it was round, so it was never looked weird, and then you could paint it to the surroundings. So they kind of really had some nice thoughts when they started the thermostats.
Do they still have mercury switches?
No, and in fact, the mercury switches were pretty cool. It was a glass tube that had mercury in there, and it had two metal wires that weren't touching. And so when the mercury was tilted, it's on that coil of wire, and as it heated and cooled, it would tilt that tube, and then when it tilted to one direction, that mercury would make contact with the two electrodes and would complete the circuit and turn it on. And then when it would heat up, let's say we're using it for heat, it would get warm, that coil of wire would move, it would tilt the tube the other direction, and it would get off those two contacts, and now it would turn off the furnace. So what a cool thing. But the key thing we always tell customers when they're changing their thermostat is look at the old one. If you have an old thermostat and it has that mercury switch, you want to recycle that. So you can go to earth911.com, and 911 is the numbers, or you can go to thermostat-recycle.org, put in your zip code, and they'll tell you the closest recycling place. And it's important to do that. It's funny that thermostat-recycle.org, last year they took in 135,000 thermostats that had mercury in them. Wow. So it's that many that isn't in the landfill. So, that's pretty cool. They recycle...
So are they like all the round thermostats, old round thermostats? Are those mercury switches?
A lot of them. Yeah, a lot of the old Honeywell.
My parents just got rid of theirs like 2 months ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well,
remember when we did the furnace filter episode?
So they had a professional do that.
Right, yeah.
So they'll recycle it, and then they take these mercury switches and they recycle them, and they put that mercury into the CFLs. But it's better than the landfill, and then hopefully people are recycling the CFLs. You know what's interesting is on one of these websites I read a statistic that one mercury thermometer can pollute a 20-acre lake. That's how toxic mercury is.
Wow.
So it's important that we recycle.
Why did they use it then?
It was very effective, simple, last forever, and it did the job.
Well, it is interesting that they're using mercury in CFLs too. I mean, if it's that dangerous, right?
Yeah, they say it's very, very small, but the problem is if everybody throws these millions and millions of CFLs in a landfill, it becomes a problem.
What type of things should we be thinking about if we're buying a thermostat?
So there's 4 basic types, or 3 basic types, kind of 4, 3 or 4. So there's manual, there's programmable, there's Wi-Fi, and then there's learning. But I see Wi-Fi and learning kind of the same. So
it's kind of a slash.
There's 3.5 types of thermostat. So, most people are used to just especially older people are used to the manual. Mm-hmm. You pick a temperature at night when you go to sleep or leave for work. You turn it down, you get home, you turn it up. Done the job forever. Programmable makes a huge difference in saving money because you can, especially if you have a 9-to-5 job or a regular routine, you're able to take a programmable thermostat and really have a substantial savings. If you live in, like here in the Chicago area, if you live in an area where it gets bitter cold and you're away from the house for 6 to 8 hours or more and your thermostat is turning it down, you can have up to 10% savings in some cases, depending on your house and your insulation, a few factors.
And then you have the 3.5.
Right, which is Wi-Fi. So it's programmable, and then you can control it with any smart device. So if your routine changes and you want to adjust the temperature settings remotely, you can do that with your smart device. And then you have a learning thermostat, which is pretty interesting. This is kind of the new thermostats where they watch how you operate the thermostat for a week or two. After that, the thermostat programs it for you. So it's very interesting. And then if your schedule changes and you start overriding it, then it will adjust to that new schedule. So just kind of interesting.
Do all these styles work on every type of heating system?
So if you have a low voltage system, so most gas forced air, steam, steam baseboard or hot water baseboard heat are all low voltage. If you have an electric baseboard heat that's 120 or 240, a basic thermostat isn't going to work with it. And then with most heat pumps, you're actually not supposed to use a programmable thermostat. They want the heat to only vary by 2 degrees up or down for the best efficiency. So it's very interesting. If you have a question on what your system is, most of these companies have been very helpful. Like whenever I've called for technical help, we always work with Honeywell and Lux and White Rodgers, and their customer service was fantastic. So you can kind of read off what type of furnace you have, and they'll help you with that.
What are some of the top-rated brands of thermostats?
It's interesting. I always like to suggest that people look at the Energy Star on this. So EnergyStar.com is really nice because they test them, they rate them.
But they don't do it anymore, right?
Right. So after 2009, they no longer rate thermostats, which is interesting. Yeah. But from our trade magazines...
Did they give a reason why they don't do it?
They said that everything's going programmable, and they know that programmable thermostats are the best thing to use because of the energy savings. And with all this new Wi-Fi technology, what they're going to do is reevaluate their program, and now they've got to retest all this new
So it seems like a lot of work.
Yeah.
So it's just like, yeah,
they're busy.
Yeah, we got other stuff to test.
Right. So you can't. So on most appliances, Energy Star is great, light bulbs, different things. But for thermostats, like in the trade magazine, well, at our store we carried Honeywell, White Rodgers, and Lux, and the other top rated thermostats are Ecobee, Lennox, Nest, and Ventstar. Those brands were all rated very high.
So do you want to talk about how to install a thermostat?
Sure. What's nice about all the thermostats I've seen is they come with these little stickers that have letters on them. When you take off, well, the first thing you should always do if you're changing a thermostat is always shut off the electric from the furnace. And if you're picking a thermostat, you want to make sure that you're getting a heat and air conditioning. So like in your condo, you just have baseboard heat. You don't have central air, so you would get a heat only thermostat. If you have gas forced,
my thermostat is going to last forever since I live right above the boiler room.
Right.
And my thermostat is always on the lowest setting, so it sits at 50 degrees because, I mean, I'm on the second floor. It's hot all the time.
Nice. Save some money.
Well, like, it was 40 degrees here, so I had the door open.
Nice.
Because it was about 76 degrees in the condo.
Funny. So you need to know whether it's heat only or heat and air when you're picking it. When you turn off the electric to your furnace, then you're going to pull off the cover off the old one, and you're going to have different colored low voltage wires connected to different screw terminals. These screw terminals are each going to have a letter. The color of the wire is not necessarily going to correspond with the letter on the screw terminal. So if you have a yellow wire, it may not be connected to the screw with a Y.
Right.
So it's very easy. All you're going to do is you're going to take the screw terminal with a Y, and you're going to mark that wire with a Y. You're going to take the screw terminal with a G. You're going to mark that with a G. You're going to mark your wires. You're going to take off the old thermostat, and you're going to connect the new thermostat to those marked wires. So just very easy. It never used to be like that. So it
always seems
much more
complicated.
complex.
Yeah. It seemed really complicated, and that's why I think, heating and air conditioning guys always did it. It's because, nobody wanted to monkey with that kind of stuff.
So now changing your thermostat is just a really easy do-it-yourself project.
Which we've done a lot of videos on changing your thermostat recently.
So you can check out our Fix It Home Improvement channel on YouTube, and you can search under, if you're on our homepage, you can search under, it has that little magnifying glass, like Sherlock Holmes.
Right.
And you can click on that, and it creates a little search bar, and you can type in like how to install a thermostat, and we have a few really nice videos. The one thing you should think about if you're replacing your thermostat is if your thermostat's in a bad position. So where your thermostat should really be is on an interior wall, away from direct sunlight, drafts. You don't want it near a door or a window. And you actually don't want it over large furniture because you want air movement flowing to the thermostat so that it can sense the true temperature of the room.
So my parents' house, they have their old thermostat used to be in the dining room.
Okay.
And so they had a big picture window in the dining room. And so the sun used to beat on that all day. All day. So like in the winter, the thermostat would never kick on because the sun's beating on it. And, and the rest of the house is freezing. So when they got the new furnace, when I think I was like in 5th or 6th grade, they moved the thermostat. Well, technically they didn't move it. They just put a new thermostat in the family room. So to this day, you could still go to my parents' house and the old thermostat is still on the wall.
That's cool.
So what do you do with that? You can take that off, right?
It's like a
vintage part of their house, I guess. An
antique.
Absolutely.
Yeah, take it off and fill the holes. Yeah, just cut if the low voltage wires, they're not connected to anything.
Right.
So you just cut those down, fill the hole, and repaint.
So maybe that's a project we'll do there.
There you go. So check it out on our Fix It Home Improvement channel. But
I guess the thermostat location makes a big difference.
Yeah, and the wires are thin. You can move them easily, especially if you're moving it from one wall to another. If you're able to access underneath from depending on how your house is set up. But if you can get to the wires, it's an easy do-it-yourself project.
So you want to share our research about the best settings for a thermostat?
Sure. So for most people in the winter, 68 degrees, if you're dressed for winter, is the best temperature. You're going to say it's the nicest balance between energy savings and comfort, and that's 20 degrees Celsius, 68 degrees Fahrenheit. You want to drop it by about 10 degrees while you're at work. So if you're gone for 6 to 8 hours or more, if you can set this down 10 degrees, you're going to have the best savings. And then at night while you're sleeping, you want to set that down about 4 to 5 degrees. So they say 68 during the day while you're home, 64 while you're sleeping, and then down to 58 when you're at work. You're going to save the most amount of money, and it's going to be the most comfortable. If you have a programmable thermostat, you want to have that start warming up about a half an hour before you either wake up or get home from work. And then in the summer, 78 degrees Fahrenheit, about 26 degrees Celsius. And then when you're out for more than 6 hours, you want to raise that 5 to 8 degrees. And then depending on how you sleep, you want to raise it about 4 degrees while you're asleep. But what's interesting is the National Institute of Health did years of research to find the best temperature for sleeping, and they found that if you're totally naked and uncovered, you get the best sleep if it's at 86 degrees.
Ugh.
Isn't that wild?
That sounds disgusting.
But what's wild is they say you put on pajamas and one sheet that you need the temperature set down to 66 to get the best sleep. That's a huge variance, 20 degrees.
I have to be covered when I sleep. I have to wear socks and I have to be covered.
Really?
Yes.
Weird.
How these things go.
All right. But that's kind of interesting. So, for the average person in the winter...
Get naked.
Get naked. And 86 degrees, they say that people got the best... All these sleep studies. Completely. And who thought that up? Okay, we got an idea of how to do some research here.
And a very long-term research.
But those are the basic settings. When you're on vacation, you don't want the temperature any lower than 50 degrees because then we're worried about humidity and a few different things. But
that's for your heat? For your heat,
yeah. And then for humidity, the EPA...
Be super cold if he came back to that from vacation during the summer.
That's why those the Wi-Fi ones are nice because you can, when you're ready to come home, then you can just adjust it from anywhere on the planet and get the heat or the cooling going. And for humidity, if you have a humidifier on your system, the EPA recommends about 60% humidity in the summer and 40% in the winter. And then in the summer and the winter, we had talked about ceiling fans before. You can actually feel about 5 degrees cooler in the summer. So if you have just that little bit of breeze blowing on your skin, it makes you feel 5 degrees cooler. And so, but what's interesting is a lot of people then leave it on because they believe the room is cooler.
Right.
But the fan has no effect on the room's temperature. I mean, there's a subtle effect in the winter. If you're pushing the fan up, it's going to break apart that stratified air. So the very warmest air is going to be on the ceiling. So you can break that up. But when you leave a room, turn the fan off.
So recently I've seen all these advertisements for the Nest thermostat.
Right.
What do you know about it?
So they took a cue from the old Honeywell with that round shape. So you can't screw up when you install it. And then the brushed steel that they have on the cover blends with most decor. It's a learning thermostat, so you can either set a schedule to begin with and then turn it up and down when you want. It'll analyze it for a week or so, and then what it does is it programs for you. So it keeps readjusting. So it's learning your routine, and then if you adapt or change your routine, it will change the settings accordingly. So it's actually very interesting.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
And then it's also designed to be like a Wi-Fi, so you can use smart devices on it. Let's say you're coming home early, you can adjust the temperature, from your smartphone. So, and then it also has away settings. If you're going on vacation, you can hit the away setting and it'll drop the temperature accordingly to save you money. And then you can either adjust it when you're coming home or when you get home and it senses motion, it'll change the temperature for you. So just very interesting.
What other interesting thermostats did you learn about?
So Honeywell has a voice-activated one, so you talk to your thermostat and adjust the temperature.
That would not be good for my grandma because she just says, I'm cold all day long.
Really?
Yes.
So you'd hear the burners firing up all day.
It's already like 76 in there almost all the time.
She'd have a name for it. Honey, can you please turn up the heat? And then Lennox, you can tie it into the Weather Channel, and it'll give you the 5-day forecast on the front of it. So some of these, the display is just beautiful on the thermostats. And some of it, like the Lennox, actually comes with wallpaper, so you can put pictures in there. So it actually looks
funny. Like
looks really attractive. Yeah,
that's funny.
And then we're going to be talking to Tim from White Rodgers, and we installed one of their Sensi thermostats.
That was at my cousin Justin and Jess's house.
So if you go to our Fix It Home Improvement channel and search for how to wire a Sensi thermostat, and Sensi is SENSI.
Yep, spell it, man.
That's their Wi-Fi thermostat, and it really does a nice job. Well, what'd your cousin think?
He loves it. There's been, so over the summer, so we did it early in the summer, and so there was a couple days it was really hot. He was upstairs, he was sleeping, and so he turned over, grabbed his phone, and turned the air conditioner down so it would kick on.
so
great,
it's
nice, so he doesn't have to go all the way downstairs.
Run downstairs, yeah.
So that's cool. And then they travel a lot, so it's nice that he's able to adjust that, when they're on their way home or leaving.
So we'll talk to Tim from White Rodgers, and he can give us some more information about some of the new thermostats.
Tim, how you doing?
I'm doing absolutely fantastic. How are you today?
Real good, thank you. I was wondering if we could just cover a little bit of the basics on thermostats and then some of the new technology that your company has.
Oh, we sure can. Well, first off, I'm with White Rodgers, as you know, and we've been in business for 75 years plus now, making thermostats and things like that. So we've been around a long time. We're one of the industry leaders. And if I guess you're asking about thermostats, homeowners got to remember that a thermostat's nothing but a switch when you really get to it. It's just a device to turn a furnace on and off and hold the temperature that you're desiring. So they're a pretty simple device, quite honestly. In fact, have you ever seen these round cheeseburger-looking things on the wall?
The new ones?
Oh, the old ones.
The old ones, like the old Honeywells?
Exactly, the 87s, and those have been around, my gosh, for decades, and they work just fine. People are basically looking at thermostats now, not so much from a energy standpoint, but from a comfort standpoint, because with the newer technologies, what digital allows us to do is hold a much tighter temperature. And more importantly, with a microprocessor in there, whatever manufacturer you're utilizing, gives you a lot of options and a lot of features and benefits you can use. So they progress quite a bit, but just keep in mind they're nothing but a switch to turn a device on and off. Now, as far as some of the technologies that are out there nowadays, I saw an interesting study the other day, and there's approximately 80 million digital programmable thermostats in the market utilized today. That's a lot. That's a lot. And the study is indicating that well over 50% of them, well over 40 million of these thermostats, the homeowners have them set on hold. In other words, they're not using the programming function. They're just
interesting, huh?
It is.
So they buy a programmable, but they're not using it as a programmable.
They're not, and I've always thought it was because we always made programming too difficult for a typical homeowner. But in recent years, I've come to the realization that's not the issue. We've made programming very, very simple. What it comes down to is that I realize that everybody is like me. I don't follow a schedule. I don't know when I leave in the morning. I don't come in at work at the same time. I rarely get home at the same time, whether this be soccer games or church. I get called out of town for work often at the last minute. I don't follow a schedule, and that's why people aren't using programmable thermostats, in my opinion. That's been a real disconnect between a device that can actually save you energy, increase your comfort level, but not making it readily available to do that so that you can use it when you need that particular feature or benefit. Now, some of the things that have come out recently, you probably have heard of the Nest thermostat, N-E-S-T.
Sure.
And that is a very interesting device that allows you to control temperature in your home via your smartphone. Well, we also have a very similar product that we have produced. It's called the Sensi thermostat. Basically, it stands for Simply Sensible. I think it's finally bridged that gap where now we can offer a consumer thermostat, a control device for their furnace or their air conditioner, that they can use it at their convenience instead of at the program time and the thermostat's convenience. To give you an example, there's an app that you can download free of charge. There's no fees involved or whatever. You download the app to your iPhone or your Android device, and you're able to access your thermostat literally from anywhere. I travel internationally for my job and was in the Philippines a couple months ago and realized that I had not changed the programming because I was going to be out of town, and I logged in from Manila and changed the thermostat temperature. I mean, it was absolutely mind-boggling how much control you can have from anywhere you have internet access.
Yeah, it is great.
But what I found myself doing is I make my living designing and working with consumers on thermostats. So you would think that I would be using programming all the time.
Right.
I shouldn't say this publicly, but I will. I'm no different than anybody else. I would set it on hold because I never knew when I'd come home or when I was going to leave for work or whatever the schedule would be. I installed one of these Wi-Fi devices, the Sensi thermostat in my home, and I now find myself, it's ironic, but walking out to the car after working all day, first thing I do is open up the app. I look at what the temperature is in the home, and if it's not where I want it, I change the temperature, and 30 minutes later, when I walk in the door, it's where I want it.
That's great.
Yeah, I've even gotten lazier than that, quite honestly, JC. I was watching a football game. I'm in St. Louis, so I was watching our Rams play, and it just felt a little cool. It was kind of cold in St. Louis, and I didn't even get out of my chair. I just grabbed my smartphone and bumped up the temperature a couple degrees. So the ultimate in laziness, I guess.
Fantastic. So you think that Wi-Fi is really the direction that would probably be the best for homeowners rather than these complicated programmable thermostats?
Well, it depends on what the needs are for the homeowner. If they're technically savvy, they have a smartphone, and they want to get into a Wi-Fi thermostat, most certainly. The price points are very inexpensive compared to the convenience and the energy savings. You can save up to 10, 20, even up to 30% by adjusting the temperature in your home. And you could do that with a mechanical thermostat or a programmable thermostat. But now, because it's so easy to connect to your thermostat via a smartphone, you'll find yourself controlling the temperature to save energy much more tightly than you would in the past.
Interesting. And how is the programming? If we compared a programmable thermostat to a Wi-Fi thermostat, is there much difference in the difficulty?
It's two different methodologies. I wouldn't say it's easier or harder, but we're so used to using Wi-Fi devices. I have an iPhone, and I absolutely love it. It's just so intuitive. You grab a temperature and time, and you just slide it where you want it. You don't have to hit a button and try and figure out what the button's trying. Everything's right there on the screen, so it's very, very intuitive, and that's what I love about the Sensi.
So basically, once you open your app, it's just like controlling it if you were standing in front of the thermostat.
Exactly.
That's nice.
And so you can do it remotely, and the beauty is that if it's cloud-based, like our Sensi is, you can do it through an iPhone or an Android. I can do it from my laptop. I can do it from my office on my PC.
So any smart device?
Any smart device. If it's not an Android or an iOS, all I do is log into our homepage, the Sensi homepage, and just log into my account, and I can access it from anywhere through basically any device that has cloud access.
Interesting. If you were going to pick a couple of your thermostats for homeowners, like a best in each category?
There is, and again, it's based on the demographic of the homeowner. If they're technically savvy and they like Wi-Fi devices, they have Wi-Fi in their home, obviously the Sensi would be what I would suggest. Okay. But, I'm over 50. My eyesight's not as good as it used to be. And quite honestly, some of the older thermostats, even the competitive models out there, had screens that were so small, I couldn't read them without my glasses, and I had to get right on top of that thing to be able to read it. There's devices that are now being designed more for the application from the homeowner's perspective. So say, for example, you're my age or older and your eyesight's not near what it was years ago. We make devices that have very large screens with large numbers, so they're readily can be read. They have backlighting on a blue screen.
Very smart. Yeah, that's a smart thing to think about, is just the convenience of being able to see it and manipulate control easily.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if you're going to spend $50, $100, $200, whatever the number is for a digital programmable thermostat, buy it so you're going to use it. So make sure it's something that you're comfortable with, and based on that, then get into the thermostat that's going to satisfy those needs. So we offer a whole bunch of different platforms based on needs and wants. Something from as simple as a straight mechanical on-off temperature device to a large screen, to some of these have programs, 4 to 8 programs a day. You can independently program. They can get as complex as you want to get.
Sure. Tim, if I wanted to learn more about your products, where would I go?
Well, you can start at the White Rodgers, R-O-D, as in dog, G-E-R-S.com.
Okay.
Or if you're interested in the Wi-Fi device, we have a website called SensiComfort.com. That's SensiComfort.com. And that has a great tutorial and an overview of the features and benefits and where you can purchase one of these.
Well, I appreciate your time, Tim.
Well, I appreciate your time for doing this too, JC. We'll talk to you again in the future.
Okay, thank you.
All the best.
Okay,
bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that was a great interview.
I enjoyed talking to Tim.
It was an interesting concept that he had about the thermostat just being a switch.
I like the simplicity of that idea.
Well, I guess that wraps up this episode then.
If you'd like to subscribe, you can subscribe on iTunes or Stitcher.
If you enjoyed it, please leave us a review.
You can check out our videos on our YouTube channel, Fix It Home Improvement.
And you can subscribe to that as well.
If you'd like to email us, you can email us at fixitpodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening.
Talk to you next week.